Today's guest is Heather Giambalvo. She is a mother of four and a grandmother of 4.5. And she is recently transitioned over in the last year and a half to being a coach, and her specialty is decluttering. So it's so interesting. I've never had a decluttering coach on the podcast. And so it's so interesting how it's so tied to mindset. And she talks about that, but she also talks about her 100-pound weight loss journey. So it was just kind of the beginning of her whole transformation into this new life. And she's so happy. She exudes joy because she's doing what she loves and what she has a gift at. And so, with no further ado, let's get right to the episode and you can meet Heather. Welcome to another episode of Not Your Average Lives. And with me today, I have Heather Giambalvo. And yes, yay. I was practicing before I hit record. Yes. And we were talking because I asked her if she had any mafia members in her family because she's from Long Island. Yeah. But I'm really excited to have a conversation today with her. She is a decluttering coach. And so I have not ever had a decluttering coach as a guest. So I'm excited to hear. I guess I'm Marie Kondo of the, version. But yeah, you can talk about that.
Yes.
And so welcome to the program, Heather.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And I also want to talk about her transformation because one of the things that intrigued me that she had written in is that she also had a huge weight loss transformation of 100 pounds.
Yeah.
So, and you're a grandmother of the fifth one is on the way,
Yep.
and you homeschooled your kids and there were, So why don't you just introduce yourself and talk about how you went from a homeschooling mom to a decluttering coach.
Okay, well, the fact that I'm a decluttering coach proves that there's a coach for just about everything in the world, right? And that there's a need for help and support in just about everything in the world. So my story is, yes, I'm in my 23rd year of homeschooling. My youngest is now 17. And my home is something that in my 32 years of marriage had always been something that really was challenging for me. I found that either I could, put good meals on the table or do a really good job homeschooling my kids or keep the house picked up, but maybe I could do two of those okay. And if I tried all three, they kind of, because I had unrealistic expectations for myself. And I tended to be sort of an all or nothing kind of person, like so many of us are, where we go on these marathon cleaning sessions and then we do nothing. Or,
I only had 2 kids. So you had double of the mess and everything. and honestly, I know it's hard because I like to have a clean, neat house, but it kind of takes away from that allowing children to be children, right?
Well, but it's all about trying to find that happy medium, right? It's not about for me, it's not about having a show place. And the clients that I work with, the members in my membership, it's not about having this perfect place where nobody feels like they can touch anything and everything's off, don't touch that, don't go in there, don't do that. It's about getting your stuff down to a manageable place, because you can't have a decluttered home until everything has a place. It's very easy to pick up when you know where things go, right? This goes here, this goes there. It's truly, most of us could take 15 minutes and do that. It's the stuff that we tend to shuffle around, pile to pile, room to room. We stick it in a box, we stick it away because we don't know what to do with it. That is really what keeps us in that clutter. And there's a mental heaviness that goes with that too. I mean, it's not without consequence. It's not just about impressing your mother-in-law when she walks in the door. It's how you feel in your own home when you look around. And everybody's toleration for clutter is different. What I might consider to be cluttered, somebody might not. I look at some of the minimalist stuff, online. And while, some of it I think is lovely, I like things on my wall. I don't like a lot of dust catchers. They have to be very meaningful to me, but I don't like I mean, you know what I'm saying? I think it's about finding a middle ground, a happy, a balance, and where you feel a sense of calm and a sense of peace in your
Yeah,
own
you know, it's
place.
funny you should say that because I don't like more like contemporary looks like with
Right.
chrome and glass. I
Yeah.
don't like that because to me
Me
that's
neither.
kind of minimalist. I like
Yes.
the comfy couch, the inviting, the pictures on the
Right.
wall, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a quilt rack with a blanket you feel like you could pull off and use. Each to their own. If that's where other people's peace and calm is, that's fine. But that does not appeal to me. That doesn't
Mm,
appeal to me either.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess it doesn't necessarily because you can have minimalist with like, more traditional furniture. It's just like you have less of it, right?
Exactly,
Uh,
exactly. And, I mean, there are people out there that say, I own 50 possessions and I can pick up everything and go wherever I'm going. I think some of that depends upon your time of life, whether you're married, whether you have kids, but kids, I think, thrive with less stuff around. I
mm.
find, like I said, my grandchildren, my daughter, when she finds the kids are really getting like they're fighting and blah, 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 it usually means it's time to go in their bedroom and, make about a third of everything go away. And then it seems to create a calm for them again. Because
Interesting.
it's very hard for us to keep up when we have too much stuff. Even for the kids, when you say go clean your room and go put things away, if there's too much stuff around, then like I said, then the fighting and all of that. So
Yeah, a book that I've been reading, it's like an excerpt a day, and it actually inspired me to do a whole podcast series on abundance. But
oh,
one of
neat.
the author, she created these six, what she feels is six tenets of abundance, and
Hmm.
order is one of them.
Yes.
And she feels like, your external world affects your internal world. And when you have order, just if you it's just straightening up the things on the coffee table,
Yep.
it makes you feel this like deeper sense of joy inside just from having some
Ab-
order.
Absolutely. Like I try very hard, even if it's just 5 minutes, just to go around and straighten up before I go to bed. Because if I wake up to it, kind of like waking up to dishes in the sink can be a little depressing for the beginning of the day. The same thing with my coffee table. If I've had stuff spread out, that I was working on before I went to bed, I like to, that order when I wake up really starts the day out right.
Yeah, I think just making the bed is like, and people say,
Yeah.
oh, like, when you were younger, you fought it so much because your mother made you make
Right.
your bed. But now as an adult, I love getting into my bed when it's like in order. Like I can pull the covers down instead of this all being like rumpled and
And honestly, it's what? How long does it take to make the bed? For the most part, what, a minute
Yeah, I
tops?
don't even tuck my pillows in like the old
No,
fashioned,
no, no,
they're just set on
exactly.
top. So I'm
Right,
just pulling
exactly.
up the
Just straighten
comforter.
out the
Yeah.
comforter and the sheets and right,
Yeah.
exactly. And
Yeah.
it's all about like so many things, building these little mini habits in there.
Mhm.
And I've been making my bed for so long that I don't even think about it. But I can think back to a time where that wasn't the case and how it seemed like a struggle. It was such a struggle to make the bed, something
Mhm.
that takes me 30 seconds.
So how
Uh,
did you go from the idea of like, well, I'm homeschooling. You're still doing that,
right.
obviously.
Hmm.
Is your 17-year-old a senior last year?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, yeah. So,
Final
gosh, you're
year.
gonna have all this
I
time.
know, right?
Yeah.
Well,
So how did you go from like, why was that so compelling to you? Because you wanted to help people?
really what happened was, like you mentioned, I started back in my early 40s to really work on my weight. I was nearly 300 pounds at the time, and I lost over 100 pounds. And
And I just have to
so,
interject here because
yeah,
a lot of people are just listening to this in audio, even though I have it on YouTube.
right.
You look amazing. Like
Thank you.
you do not look like, you're still working on it. You look
Well,
like
thank
you're
you.
really healthy and
Yeah, thank
yeah,
you. Yeah,
different person, I
so
bet.
I definitely, so I started to work, and it's a slow process sometimes, working on those mindset shifts, because I'm a big believer that any changes that you want to make in your life, 20% is strategy, and strategy is important, finding one that works for you, finding one that fits for you. But 80% of it is all the mindset shifts that you need to make in order to get going and to keep going. Because, that's it being sustainable is what is the mark of success, right? We can all do things for a little bit short periods of time. So
Now, were
as
you overweight for
I was
most of your
overweight since,
life?
yeah, yep,
Oh,
yeah.
so what changed? What it's so hard to get like to step into the
Well,
person
for
you want to
me,
be.
and it's funny thinking now that I'm a coach, I feel like I lost that weight on the power of the relationship I had with the coach that I went to. It was a a program where you go in, lots of times there was a lot of one-on-one coaching. I had done Weight Watchers all my life in the group meetings and all that, and I felt like I needed more of the one-on-one touch. And I feel like that relationship, that rapport, knowing I was coming in, that accountability is what helped me to lose that weight. And and all of the things that she taught me along the way. And so now it's kind of cool that I can now kind of return the favor for people with their homes. I took all of that that I learned from them about the mindset and all that, and I'm like, I wonder if this would work on my house. So I learned to set up simple systems for myself, to start building habits slowly, like I did with the other, and to work on consistency and to work on the thought work that to me changes everything.
What was one of the key, like if you can recall, kind of shifting into kind of the belief that it was possible? Because I'm sure having done all those years of Weight Watchers and
Yeah,
having that,
I
I'm sure there was some
I
doubt there.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that that's where the relationship with with my coach helped, because she believed when I didn't believe.
Mm.
And that's what I see now. Right now I'm working with a client, and the other day she was like, all of a sudden she's like sharing all of these insights that she's getting, and even her husband, who was really her pack rat and it was a big part of her problem, was starting to get involved in the process and was noticing the differences and all of that. And at the beginning, it's my belief. She was putting belief in me that I knew what I was doing and that I wouldn't let her quit. And then it's a transfer over time, to her believing as much as I believe in her, and then her being able to do that without me. That's the transformation. Of course, she can stay with me as long as she wants, but I'm sure she doesn't want a decluttering coach for life and
That's
won't need
right.
one for life.
Well, what does that say about you? Like, is she really
Exactly.
transformed? Is
Right.
she like,
Exactly.
yeah, you'll have to have a different kind of program for the evolved,
Well, yes. Well,
clutter-free person.
actually, that's where with my membership, that can be a good place for people, because then when you have those little lulls and whatever, you have that support, but it's just not the same level of intensity and it's not the same level of accountability. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you started to talk about, so you did say that you started to see when you transformed and lost weight, that
Mm-hmm.
maybe this could work for your house.
Yeah.
I love how these paths just kind of unfold.
Right.
You walk the path to a better you.
Mm-hmm.
And in so doing, you started to realize kind of some gifts that you had that could help other people. And I love how
Yeah.
it just kind of, you take the steps, not knowing where they're going to lead you. And
Exactly.
yeah.
I laugh thinking about, like, if I had said to myself, 15 years ago that I would ever be doing this, I would have been like, yeah, right. Never, never, never. This is just not my gift. I used to say, I just don't have the clean gene. I just don't have the clean gene, And so, yeah, so I've like, let's see if I can make this work for my home. And then it was like, it worked for me. Let me see if this will work for my friends. So, I started to do, help a couple of them. And then I'm like, oh, okay. And then, I realized that it really truly was one of my gifts, and that I wanted to share that. And you know yourself that, you don't want to spend a lot of time in your life. We talk about all these things that we do and we love, right? You got to love it. Otherwise it becomes burdensome, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was at the It's a cute story. I was at the eye doctor, and the woman at the front desk, I had on my mask, and she looked down at my name, and she looked up and she goes, "Are you the decluttering lady from Facebook?"
That's
So
awesome.
it's hysterical. You just never know who you are touching and whatever. And she reminded me that she'd sent me a message. She was moving, and she, was suggesting it as a topic for my YouTube channel. And she said, "Oh, you were so nice. You got right back to me and gave me some advice and whatever." And then at the end, she said to me, "I feel like I've been talking your ear off about decluttering. You just came here for your eyes." I'm like, "I love talking decluttering. It's fine. Don't worry about it." But it
That's
is,
so cool.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I had that experience in an airport. I
Oh,
was standing at the Starbucks line and this woman just ran up to me and said, "Are you not your average grandma? Oh my God." And then she goes, "Come
that's
meet my
great.
husband."
Well, that's it. I mean, she's like, "I feel like I'm meeting a celebrity." I'm like,
That's so
"Okay, that's
funny.
cool."
Yeah, it is. You don't know who's watching and you don't know who you're
Nope,
impacting and influencing.
exactly.
That's so great.
Yeah.
So what do you do? So say somebody's like, the clutter is overwhelming me and
Right.
making me feel very like uh frustrated,
Yeah.
taking some joy from me. Where do you
Mhm.
begin?
Well, I will say most people know Marie Kondo, cute little Japanese, I believe she's Japanese woman, who she sort of advocates of like going through your home and sort of a whirlwind and getting it all down. And I think that, that's a beautiful thing, and she's very inspiring. But I have a different approach to it. I am more the 15 minutes at a time, because I think we sort of have to trick our brains into not thinking it's such a big deal to do it. And I tend to encourage people to think of their home as a pie, and you want to go for a very small sliver at the beginning. Because if I said to you, go into your, if your house were cluttered and go get rid of 100 things throughout your house, you're not going to see a very big improvement. You might see a little bit, but it's not going to be really very encouraging. Whereas if you just work on the sliver, I encourage people to find kind of like a refuge in their house, whether it's their bedroom, whether it's just a chair with an end table where they can sit and read, whether it's their desk, whatever it is. And then they just keep working 15 minutes, I literally set the timer, Alexa, set the timer for 15 minutes and work on that area until they get it how they want it. And then to kind of guard it. And I don't mean that you can't do anything in that space or anything like that, but that you take that 5 minutes at the end of the day to reset it, just so that that is your space. And then you start to feel a sense of accomplishment, right? And you want to do more. It's like, okay, this is working. So then you expand the piece of the pie that you're working on. For me, it was my family room. It's sort of a room that's set off from the rest of the house. And I found that I couldn't sit and enjoy spending time with my husband at night or watching a Netflix or whatever, because I'm looking over and this is calling to me and that's calling to me. And it just wasn't restful and relaxing. So that was the room that I decluttered first. And then I try very hard not to let get out of hand. You're not to be, more than 5 or 10 minutes, if not less, 5 minutes from being picked up. And that's the room that at night before I go to bed, I'll make sure is all picked up, because
I
then I
recently,
had
oh, go
had
ahead.
my refuge. No, keep
Yeah.
going.
You had your refuge. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. I recently, or, it's probably been about like 3 months, but I attacked my pantry, I was like,
Mm,
and even though it's closed and you can't see it, we open it a lot,
right.
and just opening it and having it like be organized. And there were so many things in there that had dates of like
Oh, I know.
2014
And
or
you think
something.
that you did it not that long ago, and then you're like,
Exactly.
oh, it's been a little longer than I think.
Yeah, probably since
Pantries
I
are,
moved into
yeah,
my house,
yeah. Pantries are tough. When I work, we usually do a pantry challenge every couple of months in my membership, because usually more than just you touch the pantry. So I still have some children at home. So when my husband comes in from a Costco run, people are putting things away. They don't read the labels. They don't put things where they belong. So periodically, I feel like that needs, maybe not the whoosh, like where it takes you 45 minutes to get through it. But, it is good to give it a little attention every once in a while, just to straighten it. And it does feel so much better. It does
Yeah,
feel
that's interesting because
better.
my husband was the one who was like urging me on to do it. So it was kind of
Good.
like he had that same goal. I was going to ask you, how do you deal with and how do you coach people who have these outside influences that are like going into, you said
Yeah.
protect it or guard it or whatever, but
Well,
yeah,
yeah, but like I said, you can't be like where they're like you're giving them the evil eye when they come
right.
near it. Basically, you lead by example.
Mhm.
I always encourage people not to declutter other people's stuff. Now, that is not, if we're talking, it's not really your audience, but if we're talking about you having small children, obviously you're the one who has to declutter stuff. But when you start to get teenage and above, I would really discourage you from decluttering other people's stuff or making things disappear.
Yeah, you
And
just
then
close their door. I had a
well, that's
daughter. It's
exactly.
like,
Well,
that's the best
exactly.
way. Just close
Honestly,
the
I
door.
truly believe that for the most part, just when it comes to your kids' rooms, just close the door. But if you have a person in your family or a spouse or whatever who is more of a pack rat than you, I have found in my own life that my husband is more the pack rat than I am. And while he's maybe not on my same level with decluttering, he certainly has come a long way. And I've seen it in the life of my clients where their husbands, well, because I'm usually working with women, husbands start to get on board. They start to
Yeah,
notice the difference.
I love that because, in the work that I do with my clients, there's quite the ripple effect, but we do a lot of like just mindset work
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of level of change. So it's interesting that it like really works in the decluttering space too. I love
Yes, and
that.
I didn't know if it would. That when
Uh-huh.
I started out, I didn't know, but I did know that getting rid of other people's stuff, it just creates trust issues and things that are just not, you don't want to bring into your marriage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But just like being the role model that cleans up. And
Yeah.
I mean, I imagine too, the people who are more the pack rats, that when somebody else's space, but they're a part of that space is cleaned up,
Mhm.
that probably makes them feel good and they start to notice that feels good, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. My husband is more of a clothes horse than I am. I like a more minimalist closet just by nature. I prefer to have less things to choose from. And, so, his side of the closet has gotten better. Like we redid our floors. We have wood floors throughout and we had to do it in sections. So everything had to come out of the closet. And when he went to go put back in, he decluttered, he decluttered t-shirts from high school. Okay. He's going to be 60 years old next year.
My husband still
So,
wears his things. Yes, he still
well,
has.
that's okay. If he's wearing them, it's different. If it's
Oh,
just
saving
taking
them.
up. So he actually let me, because I had mentioned that, at some point we could take pictures of them because we're really just looking for the most part to invoke the memory. Right?
Mhm.
It's the story, it's the memory that goes with it. And so you can do that by looking at a picture as easily as you can do holding up the t-shirt and remembering that you were in the computer club.
Have you thought about doing a quilt with
We
them?
have actually, my oldest daughter is a seamstress and she has done that. So she's already done that for several family members, including my husband. So these were really like the second tier. These were the second tier ones.
Yeah,
But
that's
yes, it
it's
is
so
a great,
cool.
it's a
Yeah.
great, I agree. It's a great
Yeah.
keepsake.
I worked at AOL for 13 years, so you can
Oh.
imagine how many AOL t-shirts I have.
Well,
So I
my husband works in IT and he gets a lot of vendor shirts. They all give, and we laughed for years. That was his wardrobe. you
yeah,
know.
yeah. I remember one, they always had really fun like sayings on them. I remember one was they believe it or not had a Mac version first when they had the DVDs,
Right.
and then then we came out with the Windows version. They
Mhm.
actually came out with the Windows version right before I started working there. And the t-shirt said, the more windows you open, the cooler it gets. And I just loved that. Like, it's so funny
Yeah,
the things you remember.
exactly.
Yeah. So tell me, what was the scariest thing when you're thinking, like going from a homeschooling mom to having an
Mhm.
online business
Yep.
is very kind of different. So how did you clearly had a gift, which a lot of people know they have gifts, but they don't actually go and start a business. So
Right.
what made you so brave?
It is brave. It is brave. And I claim that. I claim that I am brave. And what made me so brave? I think that I really felt like I had a calling, which helped. But so much of what I'm learning and how I'm growing as a person is through this. I mean, through having to learn to be consistent when I don't feel like it, to be persistent, to, make sure that I'm doing all the things that I know build my business and, taking the next steps without knowing. It's almost like we're in a fog sometimes, right, with it. And we can't see, we know generally where we're going. We're going to that mountain. We want a business where we're making more than we're spending, because at the beginning you're spending more than you're making. Okay. And it's all the way out there and there's a fog in between. And it's really about just the same way that the same things I apply to my home and all that is, what's the next step? What's the next step? And, there is a certain amount of bravery and a real opportunity to work on that thought work, that I talked about, that I've used with my food, that I use with my home. And now this is really with the business, you're really up leveling it. I find that inspiring because it's funny, I just did a YouTube video about overcoming overwhelm, because it's very easy with the business, a home business, to get it's any part of life to be in overwhelm. And, it's all about here, because two people can do exactly the same thing and one's feeling overwhelmed and the other one's feeling focused and determined.
Yeah, she was pointing
Right.
to her head for those people
Yes.
listening.
Oh,
Yes,
yes.
yes.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we learning to be that consistency, learning to, when I don't feel like doing something, to look at what are the thoughts that are holding me back, from moving on. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is brave.
One of my mentors, I love what he says, is like, if you, the biggest personal growth journey that you can go on is starting your own business.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. But that's, I think, why I'm so fascinated with it, because I just want to keep growing and learning. And
Yeah. I mean, it's different than, I was thinking about it. I have was a teacher, I have a master's degree, and it was a very clear path. You take, I was a good student. You take this course, you take that course, and you will get your master's degree. Boom, boom, boom. You get your bachelor. You know what I'm saying? There's a clear, very well-defined path. And this is a very murky, very foggy, foggy path, in my opinion.
Mhm.
Um,
You have to be
that
okay with the fog, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Being okay with the fog and being okay that you don't know all the steps that are going to be between here and the mountain.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like when you have your high beams on, you're trying to see far away. You can't, it's harder.
Mm-hmm.
And then you put your low beams on and it's like, oh, I can see just that next thing,
Next, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's
So
a good
cool.
analogy.
Yeah. What do you think? Because I have this philosophy, I don't know how true it is, but it's like been true for me. And I've seen it in others who are coaches and really love coaching,
Right.
is that the women who really loved the role of mom and the growth of their kids and
Right.
guiding them in life. And I like coached them in sports, even though like I never played soccer. I didn't even
I
know the
did some
rules
of
of
that as
soccer. Yeah.
well. Yes.
But I was like, I
Soccer
wanted to
too.
like be a part of that and
Yeah.
like help. And so like, do you think it was an easier transition because you were a mom of four and you loved being the kind of the guide?
I would say definitely. And as particularly as a homeschool mom, very much it's more of the tutor and and the facilitator than per se the teacher, where, so much of teaching is, controlling 30 kids in a room. Okay. And each one of my kids is so different, has had different dreams. And, my oldest is a seamstress, and she did college in a certain way because, not for seamstressing, just for business, because those were her goals. And then my next is an accountant, and he's working on his MBA, what his goals. And then my next one, art. She's going to school for art. I know nothing about art, kind of a thing, and having to help her along the way. And now the last one who, thinks he wants to go into vocational stuff, so it's like they're each so different. And just the same way that each of my clients, each of my members is different. What motivates them is different. What holds them up, is different. Yeah, definitely. I agree with you, though, that moms, particularly moms who've been very involved in their lives. And one of the things think I'm good at, there's been some things I'm not so good at as a mom, but one of the things I think that I'm good at as a mom is letting my children grow up and be adults, and wanting them to be self-sufficient. All my children know how to cook. All my children do their own laundry. Does that, and those kinds of things. I value independence in them. And so, and that I always, the joke was like, if, when they went through their teenage years and they'd say, you just want to control everything. And I'd be like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I want you to fly, be free, be independent. Right. And I feel like that's, like we were talking earlier about how, as a coach, helping them to move through the process and then showing them how they can, spread their own wings and
Yeah.
fly.
Yeah. I love that you are okay with them all being so different, because a lot of times parents have a certain desire for their kids, and that might lead them down a path. That was my
Right.
mom influenced me a lot in something she said. And it's not the path that really was the best for me and what my personality is.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love that you kind of celebrate their individuality and their different,
Yes.
and let them do what they want to do. And you are a great role model for them. Like I can't imagine how proud they are of you, like what you're doing.
Well, they
So
are there. And it's funny that as they get older and more of the skeletons come out of the closets for some of their friends' families, the families that they thought were, oh, so perfect. And they come back to me and they say, you did a good job, Mom. You're the, and they'll say, Mom, no, but you are the cool mom.
Yeah, that's great. So tell me, just as we wrap up, tell me how, what a not your average life means to you, living a not your average life,
Yeah.
and how you exemplify that.
I realize that I get to choose how I experience my life. And that comes through my thoughts. I'm a big believer in the, think, feel, do cycle, that what I think drives what I feel, drives what I do. And I get to choose how I experience my life through those thoughts, through that thought work. I'm a not your average life is one where you learn to stop beating yourself up for your mistakes and just learn to get up quicker and just to celebrate all the little wins along the way. And I just feel like I exemplify that because now I am getting to share that with other women. And I just don't think that there's a better gift, because I think so many people sleepwalk through life. It's just like it's happening to them, rather than taking back their personal power. And like I said, that thought work, I can't speak enough about that, and the mindset work.
Yeah, that's great. And I have to say happy birthday, because she's turning 55 next week. And what I love is, like, you're just beginning. Like it's like you're this blossoming flower.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
Yes.
What can't be a better time of life? Because I think that if it had happened earlier in my life, I consider my family and my homeschooling was my great work. And I thought that would be my only, that would be it. That would be my great work. And I am a planner. So when I started to see the end of that coming, I'm like, I'm not going to do so well without the next thing starting to, you know, come, you know, for me to figure that out.
Mhm.
So I started to build this when, you know, I was down to one child homeschooling, and it was getting easier, and I had a little bit more time. And it's just a perfect timing, perfect transition from, as he's heading to finish his high school career, my business is, you know, really growing and blossoming, and I personally am having that same transformation in my life.
Yeah, I feel this energy from you, this
Oh,
excitement about life, and I'm very happy for you. It sounds like
thank you so
you're
much.
really helping people, and I'm so glad we connected. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I'll have to go work on some more decluttering. That piece, the next piece of pie,
Exactly, exactly. A little piece of the pie,
a little
remember?
piece of the pie. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you
All
so much for
right,
having me.
all right. Thanks, Heather. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning into the Not Your Average Lives podcast. If you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe on iTunes if you have an Apple device. You can find free resources and learn what else I have going on at the moment that might interest you on my website at notyouraverage.grandma.com. You can also find me on Instagram or Facebook at Not Your Average Grandma. If you liked this episode, it would make my heart so happy if you could leave me a 5-star rating. You can also add a review to let me know what you like about this podcast, which will help spread the word about it to others who need a little midlife inspiration. As always, be you, listen to your inner voice, and focus on reigniting that lost spark so you can start living your own, not your average life.